Fun fact about me. I am a disabled teenager. Raise your hand if when I walked in this room, you could tell I had a physical disability. No? That's because my disability is considered an invisible illness, meaning it cannot be easily seen by the naked eye. It is so invisible that it took doctors years to diagnose. When I was 11 years old, I began to experience intense physical pain. And not just in my knee or my back, but an all-consuming pain, as if a raging wildfire had swept through my body. I convinced my mom to take me to my primary physician, only for the doctor to say I was too young to be in pain. I received similar responses from friends and family when explaining how I felt. This misconception that age and illness are directly linked kept me from receiving a diagnosis for years. And without a diagnosis, it is nearly impossible to receive effective treatment. It was at that point in my life I learned what it meant to be my own advocate. In my relentless search for answers, I found myself at Cincinnati Children's Hospital at the age of 14. It was there that a specialist finally identified my symptoms as hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, EDS for short. EDS is a chronic condition, meaning it cannot be cured, and is defined as an inherited connective tissue disorder caused by a defect in the protein collagen. EDS causes chronic pain, joint dislocations, hypermobility, difficulty with swallowing and healing, GI issues, dysautonomia, and aortic root dilation. I lived with these symptoms for 3 years before a doctor looked at me and said, "I can help you." 3 years of sleepless nights, endless appointments, constant pain. It was 3 years without any relief, without support, without treatment, and without validation for what I was experiencing. Stop and simply imagine being a child in writhing pain and dealing with it all alone because the doctors swear you're too young and therefore must be lying. That's the story of my life. But somehow, I'm actually one of the fortunate ones. According to the Ehlers-Danlos Society, on average, it takes 10 to 12 years to get diagnosed with this syndrome. That is over a decade of suffering without any effective treatment. And maybe you could argue and say, "So what, Grace? Why should I care? Your condition is so rare. How could this possibly affect me?" And to you, I say that while my condition is considered rare, chronic illness in general is quite common. According to the CDC, 3 in 5 adults actually have some sort of chronic condition. So look around you right now. There's a 60% chance you're sitting next to someone who is in pain. So if that many people are suffering from a chronic condition, why is it taking years for doctors to make a proper diagnosis? Let me demonstrate why for you. I want you to listen to this audio clip and tell me what you hear. You are welcome to shout it out. Let's see. Can I get that audio clip played? Well, maybe it's not going to play. But let's say you're hearing hoofbeats, you're hearing galloping. What animal is making this noise? A horse, exactly. Yes. Thank you. You actually just proved my point. If that audio clip were to be playing, what you would actually be hearing is a zebra. But the average person instantly assumes it's a horse because the horse is the more common animal. The same idea is happening in healthcare. In medical school, students are taught, if you hear hoofbeats, think horses, not zebras. Meaning to consider the common conditions before trying to diagnose a rare disorder. While this is a wise way to start the diagnosing process, it has prevented countless individuals from receiving the correct diagnosis. Because if a child comes in with a rash, the doctor can determine if it's chickenpox. And if someone comes in with a swollen ankle, the doctor can do an x-ray and figure out if it's broken. Or if you come in with a sore throat, the doctor can test for strep. But the second I walk into a doctor's office, the second I walk in with all of my symptoms, with my lightheadedness, with my chronic pain, with my hip dislocated, the doctor doesn't have an easy peasy, all-encompassing answer. I'm not a horse. I am a zebra. And this normally leads to 4 responses. One, the doctor sends you away saying they don't know what's wrong and instead sends you to different specialists. Trust me, I know. I've been to Cincinnati Children's, been to St. Vincent's, Riley's in Indianapolis, Deaconess Gateway, any of them. You want a tour? Hit me up. I'm your girl. I can show you around those places. Those are my stomping grounds. Or if not that, the doctor suddenly becomes a life coach, saying, drink water, sleep well, and stay active. But of course, you've already tried all of that. Or third, they chase the symptoms instead of preventing the pain. Often this looks like being told to just wait until you're in excruciating pain and then take some ibuprofen. But at that point, the ibuprofen doesn't even help. Or finally, they chalk it all up to anxiety, claiming that every single problem is just in your head because they cannot physically see it. But I can assure you that when my hip is literally out of its socket, that is not in my head. This last response is arguably the worst because it is one of the main contributors to the lack of awareness for invisible illnesses. It prevents the problem from being effectively treated. Physical health problems are best treated by physical means. But this is prevented when the label of anxiety is slapped on the problem. Secondly, this hinders a patient's ability to receive support. If medical professionals refuse to recognize your condition, how can you expect friends and family to understand? The best way to keep this from occurring and to spread awareness is to first understand that just because you cannot see someone's pain does not mean that it is not there. This is so important that I want you to say this with me. Just because I cannot see the pain does not mean it is not there. Thank you. I'm going to lead you through a little exercise to solidify this idea. I need you to all promise that you'll play along, okay? So close your eyes for me. Now, think of a number between 1 and 10. Once you have your number, you may open your eyes. Okay, got it? Open. Hold up. You guys promised you'd play the game, but you didn't play. You must not have played because I can't see the number you thought of, so you didn't play. No, you're all looking at me like I'm crazy, I'm ridiculous right now. Of course you thought of a number, and just because I couldn't see that doesn't mean it didn't happen. You have thoughts. I cannot see your thoughts. That does not negate the fact that you have thoughts. It's a very simple logic that everyone in this room understands. But the second it comes to invisible illnesses, society's logic gets clouded. I was talking to my geneticist recently about this, and he reminded me, Grace, no one's actually ever seen pain. We don't see pain. We felt it. You've probably stubbed your toe before, but you don't see it. Maybe you see inflammation and you're like, that's gotta be painful. Maybe you see someone in a cast and you're like, oh, broken ankle, that hurts. And you have an indicator and you emphasize. But we don't literally see pain, yet we all know it exists. So it exists for those with chronic conditions too, even if there's not an indicator. The truth of the matter is that I am in pain, and someone near you is most likely in pain. You cannot physically see the pain still exists anyway. And now that we have established that invisible illnesses are legitimate, we do not have to simply wait around for the medical world to implement that realization. Anyone can start raising awareness right now. And there are 6 simple ways to do this: care, understand, accommodate, educate, help, and advocate. First, care. Having a chronic illness can be very lonely since most of those around you have never experienced the pain you feel. This feeling of loneliness is reinforced when doctors refuse to validate the symptoms you are experiencing. So one of the best things you can do is to just listen to your chronically ill friend and be empathetic. Saying things like, I hear you, I believe you, you are not alone in this, can make the world of a difference. Care. Secondly, understand. Chronic illness often forces the person who has it to make difficult decisions, like stepping down from a team or club because it became physically too much, or having to cancel plans because their pain flared up again. I speak on behalf of the entire chronic illness community when I say we hate to make these calls and feel as though we are letting everyone down. So please don't add to that feeling. Understand and do not take it personally. You can also try to reschedule or even meet your friend where they are at. Maybe this looks like a movie night at your friend's house instead of the shopping spree you had planned, because it feels like a normal amount of energy exertion for an able-bodied individual can be excruciating for someone with chronic pain. Understand that. Third, accommodate. In the workplace, in the classroom, and in public, the best way to help someone with a disability is to allow and account for accommodations. Genuinely ask your friend, student, or employee what restrictions they have, and then be intentional about providing accessibility. Note that not all disabled people are in wheelchairs, and even people who are not in wheelchairs may still need certain accommodations. Example A, accommodate. Fourthly, educate. If you're a parent or teacher, the most revolutionary thing you can do is explain to your children what invisible illnesses are and how to treat other children with disabilities. This is a very practical way to stop bullying and to create a safe school environment where kids with disabilities can just be kids. Growing up, even as a teenager in high school, kids at school made fun of me for not being able to do certain gym class exercises or for taking the elevator. People look at me funny when I park in the handicap spot. But the truth of the matter is that some days I cannot get up and down stairs. That there are certain exercises that if I do them, I get so lightheaded I black out. And that there are days when it is merely impossible to just walk. I got a text from a mom this week telling me her little girl, who has the same condition I have, she's in elementary, and she started being bullied for it. This is not okay. This is not okay, and we as a society can never be okay for kids being bullied for genetic condition they cannot control. Just because you cannot see someone's pain does not mean it is not there. And it is vital for children to be taught this fact too. Educate. Second to last, help. If you really want to help, then physically help. Bring over a meal. Make sure they have water. Bring them their medication. Ask your friend, child, or loved one with a chronic illness what they need, and then be intentional about meeting that need. I promise it is greatly appreciated. Help. Lastly, advocate. Be an advocate. One major way to do this is by accompanying your loved one to their doctor's appointment. When another individual can testify to the symptoms that a person is experiencing, doctors are more likely to listen and pursue proper treatment. Stand by their side and tell the doctors and the bullies that they are not faking, that their pain is real, and that they deserve proper accommodations. If anyone questions your loved one's invisible illness, kindly explain what you learned in this talk. I say all of this because I've always been forced to be my own advocate, and I'm begging you to not let that be the case for another child. Your children and loved ones deserve people who will demand they get the treatment they need. So will you help? Will you choose to believe that person the next time they confide in you about their symptoms? Will you hold their hand as the pain ravages their body, even though you cannot physically see it? I'm asking this because I'm personally tired of being lonely and spoken poorly of due to a genetic condition I cannot control. Yet more than that, I am asking this because I do not want one more little kid to lose all their friends just because they can't play tag or basketball or hopscotch at recess. People are in pain. Be their advocate. Thank you.